one of the big stories that we are following for you. 2 of the 4 Americans that were kidnapped in Mexico found dead, and we're still getting new reports there on this story that has really captured the attention of many. And now to give us a better insight on this matter, we want to bring in a special guest here to Live Now from Fox. This is Bobby Chacon there, a former FBI special agent. Thank you so much for being here with us on Live Now and giving us insight on this matter. And Bobby, first question to you is, what was your thinking when you heard this headline come through this morning?
Well, unfortunately, it's what some of us had expected in this type of situation, having worked these kinds of matters for many years overseas. They're very rarely resolved in favor of the victim. It seemed like from the beginning this was a violent confrontation, whether it was staged or they happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, as it seems now. It seemed like it was not going to have a very good resolution.
No, not there at all there. So when we hear about these reports there of maybe a case of mistaken identity, what are we looking at as far as cartels that are active in Mexico? And I mean, what's going on there where you can just cross over and then unfortunately be shot as you're driving?
Well, Matamoros is a border town, right? And so it's right across from Brownsville. So literally, it's the same neighborhood almost. There's obviously a country border between the two cities, but it's a very, very close to Brownsville, Texas, and people often travel across the border for shopping or for whatever. Now, Matamoros was the home, or is the home base for what's known as the Gulf Cartel, Gulf of Mexico, because it's right there on the Gulf. And in recent years, unfortunately, the DEA and the Mexican government had some success several years ago, probably a decade ago, in removing the head of the Gulf Cartel and some of his top echelon managers. And so that cartel was somewhat decimated for a while, but what that did was it left a power vacuum. And so differing warring factions within the Gulf Cartel have been at war in Matamoros, and that's why the violence has escalated in recent years, because when there was one boss and one cartel in charge, things were a little more calm. And now that was kind of the leadership of that cartel was dismantled, it created a power vacuum. And I think that there is still a violent struggle within the Gulf Cartel to take over who's going to lead that cartel.
And what warnings should Americans heed before going to Mexico when they see stories like this?
Well, I think that the best thing to do is go on the State Department website. They update it very, very often. They updated it within the day of this happening. And look, because the entire country of Mexico is not bad and violent and dangerous. So you need to know where to go in a particular country, just like any country, just like the U.S. There are places you might not want a vacation, and there are places you want a vacation. And so I would tell Americans that we're thinking to traveling to Mexico, go on the State Department website and state.gov, I think it is, and do some research on the different areas, because not every area is like Matamoros. This happens to be one of the more violent cities, and because it's where it's situated and because of the cartel struggling to find leadership, that's why it's dangerous. But there are other places in Mexico, certainly, that are fine to go and vacation at.
And as you said, because we have this situation where this vacuum of leadership and the different factions are trying to get an upper edge there, going forward here, are we going to see more of this in these towns where this violence can erupt at any moment, even in broad daylight?
Oh, absolutely. And I think the cartels pretty much control a city like Matamoros. And so I think that we have seen it escalating over the last couple of years. And unfortunately, these 4 Americans were down there for a medical procedure that was probably a lot cheaper to have in Mexico. One of them, I saw reporting that he had misgivings about going down there with his friend for this procedure. They looks like they were caught. Everybody's calling it a kidnapping, but this is not a traditional kidnapping where someone's taken on purpose for ransom. It seems like these people were caught in a crossfire. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and tragedy ensued. Now, what I'm seeing reported is that there are 2 survivors and 2 deceased Americans, and so we'll have to sort all that out. But it seems like they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I can tell you, Matamoros is probably the wrong place to be right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And with those 2 Americans that did survive, what would the FBI do for questioning as far as trying to get intel and maybe some just storylines from them? What goes on after they come out of the hospital that the FBI will be asking these 2 Americans?
Well, they'll do a standard witness victim interview, which means you're trying to get a description of the people that shot them or shot at them or took them in the truck, anything they overheard, if any of them have a Spanish language capability, what they overheard, because I'm sure all the language was Spanish, all the conversations. So where they were taken, what type of building they were in, whether they were in a home, whether they were in a building, whether they were in a basement, where they were taken. And so you're just trying to extract that kind of information. Now, these are American tourists that were down there for a surgical procedure. So they don't know the players, so they won't know who's who. So these are victims that will probably produce very little intelligence as far as their interviews go. Maybe a location where they were taken, how far they drove, they think, and things like that. But generally, they'll want to get them home back to the United States as quickly as possible and the safe confines of their family and friends. I don't think there's going to be a lot of real intelligence coming out of these victim interviews.
And lastly, from the reporting, it's saying that this was a case there of possible mistaken identity. What do you think the cartel saw in this vehicle that may have thought that it should have been someone else? What could have led up to this from your thinking?
Yeah, I don't know if it was mistaken identity or they were simply caught in the crossfire. They might have been, these warring factions of the Gulf Cartel have been at war with each other internally for many years. And so this car in traffic could have been deemed a threat or could have taken a maneuver in traffic that the shooters deemed as being with the other people that they were shooting at or whatever maneuver they might have made. And it may have been an innocent maneuver to get out of the way, but it was interpreted wrong and they fired upon that car. And they, obviously now we know killed 2 Americans. And so I don't know if it was mistaken identity. They thought, because it would really be hard for me to believe that they would think that these 4 Americans were part of their own cartel and were a rival faction. Those people are pretty identifiable, and the vehicles they drive are pretty identifiable. And so I think that this group of Americans was caught in the crossfire. They may have made a maneuver. The driver may have done something innocently that they interpreted as an aggressive maneuver, and so they fired upon them. That's all probably, hopefully will come out in the investigation.
And maybe, Bobby, while I still have you here, maybe describe when Americans are killed anywhere around the world, how that kind of amps up the pressure on the country there where it happened compared to others that die around the world. If you could maybe explain that to our viewers.
Well, sure. Look, the FBI has an office in Mexico City. We liaison with the Mexican National Police and other law enforcement in Mexico all the time. That's their job. We have an office in Mexico City, and we have offices out throughout Mexico and other places. And our job is to maintain relationships with these countries, and that's the ambassador's job, right? The whole State Department exists for that reason, and the embassy has really good relations with the host nations. And when citizens, of our country get killed in their country, they feel a certain responsibility to help. In certain instances, we have jurisdiction through treaties to go in there and investigate and stuff. So it strains relationships, and it shows you how good all of the preparation you put into maintaining those relationships has been, because now the rubber has to meet the road, and those relationships have to come through and provide you with the access to crime scenes or the access to witnesses or the access to intelligence files that you have. And so those relationships that you build up over years, really, they come to light, whether they're good or not, in these types of situations. So you really can judge how well the host nation has been, developing that relationship with you when something like this happens. And now you say, can you turn over the files for these people and see what their response is?
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby Chacon, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox and giving us some insight. And thank you so much for your service as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man.